A socially anxious young woman fights alone as her town gets invaded by aliens. Welcome to Movies Explained. Today's film is a sci-fi thriller from 2023 titled No One Will Save You. The movie opens with a lakeside house, where a young woman named Brynn is anxiously starting her day. She tends to a miniature town display in her living room, then completes sewing a dress intended for a client. Once packaged, she steps outside, making a futile attempt to revive a circle of dead grass in her yard before setting off for town. En route, she pauses by a house, hoping to catch the attention of a man she's fond of, but he completely ignores her. In the town, she discreetly places her packages into a mailbox and then visits her mother's grave. Brynn's social anxiety is evident. She hastily departs upon hearing nearby voices and goes to the extent of covertly circumventing her car to avoid an elderly couple on the street. Finally, back home alone, Brynn writes a letter to a person named Maud about seeing her parents and how Brynn is still feeling regret about something that happened. She then gets excited about a package arriving that contains a new piece for her miniature town. She happily continues her daily activities of practicing a dance, cooking, turning down phone calls, and eating on her porch. After finishing her letter to Maud, who is Brynn's childhood best friend, she reads a book and goes to sleep. Later that night, all of the house lights suddenly turn on and off again on their own, before a sound from outside wakes her up. It's an unknown animal that seems to have disturbed her trash can, so she brushes it off and heads out of her room. She notices that the lights won't turn on, and her front door is opened. A shadow can be seen walking around her living room while making weird noises. It suddenly runs away, so Brynn carefully walks back up the stairs, taking her shoes off to make less noise. Unfortunately, the creature spots her, so she runs to her room and hides behind her bed. The creature is a lanky alien that searches Brynn's room, even hopping on the bed as she hides under it. She can see it tiptoeing to the window with its weird-looking toes and making more sounds before it seemingly flies outside. Brynn immediately closes her window shut. She hears another noise downstairs, so she sneaks out with a curling iron as her only weapon. Footsteps can be heard on the roof, so she runs down to shut her front door. She panics when the electricity in her house starts to turn on, and after she shuts everything off again, she hurries to the phone. Her plan is interrupted by her furniture moving on its own, as if controlled by telekinesis. After calming down, she takes a peek at the hanging telephone, which is then grabbed by an alien's fingers that returns the phone to its place. It hears Brynn's breathing and opens the fridge door right in front of her face before slowly peeking through the top. Brynn pushes the fridge door and tries to escape, but the alien rips out the front door to hit her. She crawls towards her miniature town, which is also destroyed by the alien. It telekinetically drags Brynn closer, who took a piece of her miniature buildings, accidentally stabbing the alien's head with it. The alien dies face to face with Brynn, who is bewildered by what she's experiencing. It falls on her and she runs away, frozen in place until daylight comes. She breaks out of her shock to check on her wounds and slowly walks towards the dead alien. After confirming that it's indeed dead, she covers its body with a blanket and tries to call 911, though it seems like her phone has stopped working. In fact, all of her electricity has stopped working despite her best efforts at resetting it. Her car doesn't work either, so she decides to take a shower to clean up all the blood from her injuries. She gets herself ready, covers her gaping front door with a couch, and takes her bike to town. On the way, she sees that the mail delivery truck has flipped over in front of her crush's wrecked house. Brynn runs towards the house and notices there are many patches of dead grass forming circles, like in her own yard. She finally arrives at the town and heads to the police station where she sees Maud's parents. The mother spits at her face and storms out in anger, while the father looks at her in disdain. The other officers also seem reluctant to help her, so she walks out of the station without reporting the incident. She tries to unlock her bike chains while having a panic attack, but it gets so bad that she needs to take a moment to calm herself by a painted wall. Seeing a bus pulling up, Brynn decides to buy a ticket and hops on to leave the town. As the bus passes through the houses in the neighborhood, we can see that the circles left by the aliens are in every single house's yard. Suddenly, a man moves to sit right behind Brynn, which she notices. As she tries to move seats, the man grabs her and she can see an alien creature inside the man's throat. She tries to get away, but the man and another infected woman pursue her. Seeing this, the driver stops the bus and Brynn gets off, while still being followed slowly by the infected man. Eventually, she arrives at a private property, but stops when she hears people screaming nearby. She continues running, finding a church whose doors are all locked. Looking at the church's cemetery, she approaches and stops in front of Maud's grave, who died 10 years ago when she was 12. From above, a huge cloud rolls in, prompting Brynn to run away from it as she senses something ominous. Back at her neighbor's house, she sees more infected people, including her crush, looking up and reaching their hand towards the cloud. They notice Brynn's presence and look at her, but don't chase her as she runs away. She finally arrives back at her house, where she notices the dead alien is discharging some kind of liquid from its mouth. The trail goes outside towards a bed of flowers in her yard, but as she searches around, she notices the clouds rolling in above her house. Preparing for more aliens, she comes inside and lights up candles, lanterns, and the fireplace for visibility. She also turns on all her stovetops and boils pans of water on them. She nails down a blanket to cover the broken entrance, as lights from the alien craft can be seen circling her house. While walking, she notices the nails that are holding the blanket are telekinetically taken off before a beam of white light enters through the doorway. The light lifts the dead alien's body out of the house. More lights scan her house while Brynn runs to the basement just as a small alien hops in front of her front doorway. She plans to escape through a hatch that leads outside, but the white light once again beams through and breaks down the hatch, forcing her to hide. She can see another alien walking in and searching the basement for her. Brynn takes a scissor and hides under the table, but she ends up being discovered by the alien. It uses telekinesis to take away her scissors and tries to communicate with her. It also takes away her framed picture with Maud, which it seems to be interested in. Brynn manages to run upstairs, but the smaller alien finds and attacks her. She bites it to free herself and fights back by throwing the pans filled with boiling water at it. While running, the white light shines through the house and makes the pan she's holding stick to the wall, as if pushed by the light. The small alien walks through the light, somehow acting calmer afterward, making a weird pose and not moving. Brynn takes this opportunity to enter a room and close the door, but the small alien returns to rampage mode as it tries to break down the door. She tries to escape through the window, but the small alien grabs her ankle and drags her back to the room. Brynn uses a mop to shove it away, which breaks in half and allows her to stab it through the alien's shoulder. Finally, Brynn escapes the house, but another alien with very long arms and 4 long legs shows up in front of her. The possessed delivery man from earlier shows up and drags her by her hair toward the tall alien. In the sky above, she can see a UFO approaching as the tall alien makes weird gestures, seemingly to communicate with the UFO. The possessed man stops and looks up, but Brynn manages to let herself go and pushes the man, just as a white light beams down from the UFO. It stops the man's movement and pulls him to the sky before dropping him down again. The UFO flies away, leaving the tall alien looking confused while the possessed man starts to move again. Brynn runs away with the tall alien running after her. It even crawls over her house and screams from the roof, seeming to call more aliens for backup. Funnily enough, the tall alien falls as it loses its footing on the roof, but gets back up to continue chasing Brynn. It gets stuck in her car, and Brynn seizes the moment to ignite the leaking gasoline, causing an explosion. After Brynn smiles in triumph at the wreck, she's surprised again by the white light that is now chasing her, even as she gets inside the house. She hides in her room while the alien from the basement slowly opens the door and comes inside. It scans the room to look for Brynn while seeing the memory she had with Maud while they were young. Brynn sneaks up from behind the alien while it seems distracted, but it moves only one finger to push her away, breaking through the room's wall. She crawls before running away again, but a red light now shines at her through a window, forcing her to stay motionless before slamming her towards the ceiling. She falls when it stops shining, but the light catches her midway to the floor and slams her back up. Brynn notices one of the aliens drawing nearer, floating upwards to come face to face with her. It emits a noise, then convulses, gagging until another smaller creature emerges from its mouth. This new entity, adorned with numerous tentacles, drifts gently toward Brynn. Her mouth involuntarily opens, allowing the tentacled creature to slide in. Suddenly, she awakens in her room with a scream, the prior events feeling like a mere nightmare. Regaining her composure, she rises and makes her way downstairs. Her home appears untouched. A faint noise from the hallway urges her to investigate. Instead of the expected, she is met with the hazy form of a woman and a distant voice murmuring, "Maud." As the figure comes into focus, Brynn collapses, recognizing an older version of Maud, her dearly departed friend. Filled with emotion, Brynn seeks Maud's forgiveness before she frantically reaches into her throat, extracting the tentacled alien. Back in reality, Brynn stands outside her house clutching the small alien. It wriggles free, darting into the grass. As she searches for it, a UFO suddenly appears overhead. The ship emits a yellow beam directed at the small creature, and astonishingly, a human form materializes within the light. As the small alien enters the mouth of this newly formed individual, Brynn, filled with dread, dashes toward the nearby woods. The UFO ascends, joining a multitude of identical ships in the sky. Deep within the forest, Brynn encounters an exact replica of herself, her doppelganger, birthed earlier by the alien process. Frozen in disbelief, she fails to notice her twin's malicious intent until a blade pierces her side. They embrace as the double relentlessly stabs her, but in a desperate move, Brynn wrests the weapon away, using it to fatally wound her lookalike, who dies in her arms. After a while, Brynn leaves the forest only to encounter another tall alien, before a white light beams down and transports her to the UFO. She wakes up inside the dark craft and is approached by multiple human-sized aliens. They point their fingers, and one of them touches her forehead. Her consciousness is transported to one of her memories of her mother and her younger self crafting. She then goes outside the house to find another memory frozen in time of many policemen in front of her house. Brynn stumbles and falls to the grass. When she looks up, she sees her younger self being pushed to the ground by Maud. She tries to stop herself from grabbing a big rock, but it's no use because her past self has used it to hit Maud's head, which is what killed her. In the blink of an eye, Brynn is now sitting across a table from her younger self. Young Brynn is writing a letter for Maud but can't continue as older Brynn starts to cry. Older Brynn reaches her hand out to her younger self, and they are illuminated by a white light as they stare at each other. Meanwhile, the aliens are witnessing this scene from a distance and bring her back from the hallucinations. The aliens are conversing about what to do with her, and after the UFO pulses, she is dropped back to Earth by the white light. Brynn lays on the concrete road as she watches the UFOs flashing colorful lights in the night sky. She laughs, seeming to find peace in this madness. A while later, the now much more confident Brynn prepares for her day and bikes toward her neighbor's house. She waves at her crush and the others who are actually still under the aliens' influence. However, she seems to be enjoying her altered neighbors as she dances with her crush in the town center, along with the other infected townspeople. The movie ends with a shot of the UFOs flying across the skies above the town, seeming to have full control of the area. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for more videos.